The rain had stopped hours ago, but the scent of it still lingered in the city, damp asphalt, faint perfume, and memories that refused to dry. Jun-ho stood by the window of his high-rise apartment, staring at the skyline like it held all the answers he'd been avoiding. His phone lay silent on the table beside a half-drunk glass of whiskey, the screen still lit with one name he hadn't dared to delete. Yoon-ah. It had been 3 months since their last public appearance, 3 months since the silent break turned from a rumor into a wall neither of them could climb. The industry had stopped asking questions, the headlines had moved on. But the silence between them hadn't. It lived quietly in the hours past midnight, in the unsent drafts and unanswered calls, in the ache that grew heavier every time one of them appeared on a screen alone. That night, he found himself scrolling through their old messages, the playful banter, the shared secrets, the good luck texts before every shoot. And then he stopped at one that never got a reply. "I'm sorry if I made you feel small that day. It wasn't what I meant." Sent at 1:07 a.m., 3 months ago. Seen. Never answered. That was the moment everything changed. Back then, the silence hadn't felt cruel. It had felt like space, something temporary, something she needed. But as weeks passed, it hardened into distance. And distance, Jun-ho learned, was the cruelest language of all. He remembered the day it all began, the final shoot of their drama, the moment that should have been a celebration. The director had called, "Cut," the crew had cheered, and she had turned to him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. They'd hugged for the cameras, their chemistry flawless even in goodbye. But backstage, under the dim light of the dressing room, she had said something that left him cold. "You make everything feel like work lately." He'd laughed it off, thinking she was teasing. But her eyes didn't soften. She just slipped her phone into her bag and walked out before he could answer. He should have followed her then. He should have said something, anything. Instead, he let the silence grow roots. Later that night, guilt gnawed at him. He drafted that apology message, simple and raw. He didn't want to lose her, not to pride, not to misunderstanding. He watched the message turn blue on his screen, then waited. And waited. But the reply never came. What he didn't know was that Yoon-ah had seen the text in the middle of a storm, literally. She was sitting in her car, parked by the Han River, the sound of thunder drowning out her thoughts. The message had appeared just as she was convincing herself she was done. She read it twice, her fingers trembling over the keyboard. She wanted to answer. She wanted to say, "It's not about that day. It's about everything we never said." But she didn't. Because for the first time, she was tired of always being the one to forgive. They had built something rare, a connection that blurred the line between fiction and reality. The world loved them together, on screen and off. But love, she realized, wasn't supposed to feel like an act she had to rehearse. It was supposed to feel effortless. And lately, everything with Jun-ho had felt scripted. So she locked her phone, wiped her tears, and drove home in silence. The message remained unanswered, and the gap between them became permanent. Weeks turned into months. They both moved on professionally, at least on paper. Jun-ho threw himself into rehearsals for his concert tour. Yoon-ah accepted a new drama offer overseas. Their agencies issued polite statements about busy schedules and individual projects. Fans speculated endlessly, piecing together clues from social media posts and airport photos. But behind closed doors, neither of them slept well. Jun-ho found himself replaying her laugh in his mind whenever the stage lights dimmed. He caught himself looking for her name in every audience. And Yoon-ah, no matter how far she flew, couldn't escape the ache that followed every new script reading. She found herself hesitating at lines that reminded her of him, the words catching in her throat like unspoken apologies. Then came the night that almost brought them back. A mutual friend hosted a private after-party following an award show. The guest list was small, the music soft, the kind of space where old wounds could heal if given the chance. Jun-ho hadn't planned to go. But fate, or maybe loneliness, pushed him there. When he walked in and saw her across the room, her hair tucked behind one ear, laughter caught mid-air, time slowed. She saw him too. The silence between them broke for the first time in months. He walked over, every step heavier than the last. Yoon-ah. Her name left his lips like a confession. She looked up, calm but distant. Jun-ho. It's been a while. He wanted to say everything he'd rehearsed, the apology, the explanation, the truth that no camera ever captured. But the words stuck somewhere between his heart and his throat. So he just nodded. They stood there for a moment, two people who used to know each other's rhythms now fumbling through awkward pauses. The crowd around them laughed and clinked glasses, but their world felt still. "I got your message," she finally said, her voice soft. He blinked. "I figured you did." "I didn't know what to say," she continued. "Back then. I thought if I answered, we'd just keep pretending everything was fine." He looked down, guilt pressing hard against his ribs. "And now?" "Now," she said, her eyes glistening, "it's too late to pretend." That was the moment he realized some apologies don't need to be ignored to be unheard, they just arrive too late. They talked for a while, carefully, politely, like strangers trying not to spill history all over the table. He told her about his tour, she told him about her upcoming film. They smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give someone you once loved and can't again. When the night ended, he walked her to her car. The air was cold, her hands were tucked in her coat. She looked at him once more, as if searching for something that wasn't there anymore. "Take care, Jun-ho." He wanted to stop her, to say, "I still love you," but instead he said, "You too." The next morning, the headlines called it a friendly reunion. Fans gushed about how comfortable they looked together. But comfort was the last thing they felt. That night, he opened their chat again. He scrolled to the message that had started it all. Still there. Still unanswered. He hovered over the screen, thinking of deleting it, but he couldn't. Because even if it never got a reply, it was the only proof that he'd tried. Yoon-ah, meanwhile, sat in her hotel room across the city, the same message glowing faintly on her screen. She never deleted it either. Sometimes she read it when she missed him, sometimes when she tried to hate him. But every time, it hurt the same way, a quiet reminder that love doesn't always end with a fight. Sometimes, it just ends with silence. Months later, fate tested them again. They were both invited to appear in a new brand campaign, separate shoots, same endorsement. The production team, unaware of their unspoken history, paired their names on the press release. Fans exploded online, celebrating what they thought was a reunion. When the posters were revealed, their faces appeared side by side, smiling like they once did. But behind those smiles were two stories still unfinished. The campaign became a hit, reigniting nostalgia among fans, yet privately both of them knew the truth. They were no longer each other's home, only each other's echo. And yet, even echoes have a way of lingering. One night, after a long recording session, Jun-ho checked his messages again. For a fleeting second, he imagined her name lighting up his screen. But it didn't. So he locked his phone, leaned back, and whispered into the quiet. "I'm still sorry." Somewhere miles away, Yoon-ah stood by her balcony, watching the city lights shimmer like old memories. Her phone buzzed with new notifications, scripts, brand offers, interviews, but none from the one she secretly wished for. She took a breath, whispered his name under the stars, and let the wind carry it away. In another life, they might have worked. In this one, all that remained was a message that changed everything, and an apology that never came. The city lights blinked like distant stars through the misty window, each one a reminder of a world moving forward while some things remained frozen. Lee Jun-ho couldn't sleep. He had tried, he really had, but the memory of Yoon-ah's voice, soft and unreachable, haunted every quiet corner of his apartment. Her words from the private reunion still echoed, "Now it's too late to pretend." Too late. The phrase twisted inside him like a knife, sharper than any argument or misunderstanding could ever be. He picked up his phone again, scrolling mindlessly through old conversations. And there it was, the blue bubble of the message he had sent 3 months ago. "I'm sorry if I made you feel small that day. It wasn't what I meant." Seen. Never answered. His fingers hovered over the screen, trembling. He wanted to delete it, wanted to erase the ghost of the past. But somehow, the thought of it sitting there, unreplied yet permanent, felt like the only connection he still had to her. Across the city, Yoon-ah was doing the same. She was in her quiet hotel room, the hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. She had checked the message countless times since that night, sometimes with hope, sometimes with resentment. The truth was, she hadn't stopped thinking about him. She had tried to convince herself that she had moved on, that career, fame, and distance could patch over the emptiness. But she hadn't. And now, months later, it hurt more than ever. It was a Friday evening when fate decided to intervene again. Both were booked for a late-night brand campaign shoot, different schedules, different studios, but somehow the team had arranged a shared rooftop scene for the final shot. Neither knew the other would be there. Jun-ho arrived first, his camera-ready face hiding the storm beneath. He adjusted his jacket, took a deep breath, and walked onto the rooftop. The night air was sharp, cold enough to make his lungs ache. And then he saw her, Yoon-ah, standing near the edge, staring out at the skyline. The city reflected in her eyes made her seem almost unreal, a figure out of a dream he didn't want to wake from. She turned, sensing him before he spoke. Their eyes met, and everything else fell away, the crew, the cameras, the world. For a brief moment, it felt like they were the only two people alive. "Jun-ho," she said, her voice low, almost hesitant. "Yoon-ah," he replied, stepping closer. The instinct to reach out, to close the distance, battled with years of pride and caution. For several minutes, they simply stood there, two figures on a rooftop, sharing a silence heavier than any words could carry. Then Jun-ho spoke, carefully, almost afraid of breaking the fragile bubble. "I never stopped thinking about you. That night, that message. I should have said more, done more. He paused, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry." Yoon-ah's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She looked away, struggling to steady her voice. "I know. I saw it, the message. And I read it, every word. But it wasn't just about that night, Jun-ho. It was about everything we left unsaid. And I was tired. Tired of always being the one to fix it." Jun-ho's chest tightened. He had expected anger, maybe disappointment, but not this quiet sorrow. "I know," he whispered. "I never realized how much I hurt you until it was too late." For a moment, they allowed themselves to remember. The laughter backstage, the late-night rehearsals, the stolen glances during interviews. Memories that once felt so vivid now carried the bittersweet sting of impossibility. Then came a new sound, a notification on Yoon-ah's phone. She glanced at it, frowning. Jun-ho noticed the change immediately, the slight tension in her posture. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Are you sure about tonight? Everything depends on this." Her eyes met his, a mix of worry and uncertainty. "It's work," she said, hiding the screen. But the weight of the unknown pressed between them. Something was happening beyond their control, something that threatened to pull them apart again. Jun-ho reached for her hand instinctively. It was tentative at first, a test, and then she allowed it. Fingers intertwined, a silent acknowledgement that despite the time, the distance, and the silence, there was still a thread connecting them. Fragile, yes, but unbroken. The cameras started rolling for the rooftop scene, capturing the scripted smiles and brand-friendly gestures. But off-camera, reality played a different story. Jun-ho and Yoon-ah moved closer, leaning on each other in a way that spoke of unspoken forgiveness, lingering love, and the hope that some things might still be mended. The shoot ended, but neither wanted to leave. They lingered, watching the city below, the lights twinkling like 1,000 stories, some happy, some unfinished. The night was theirs alone, a quiet reprieve from the chaos of their lives. Finally, Yoon-ah spoke, voice barely audible. "Do you ever wonder, what if we had just talked earlier? Before everything fell apart?" Jun-ho nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Every day. I've imagined it 100 times." She looked at him, a faint, bittersweet smile forming. Maybe it's not too late to start, even if it's just a little." Jun-ho's heart pounded. "I want that. I want a chance, even if it's messy, even if it's complicated." Looser than they'd ever dared to be. The future was uncertain, and the city stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities and dangers alike. Jun-ho and Yoon-ah stayed on the rooftop long after the cameras left, wrapped in each other's warmth, both aware that love was never simple, never neat. It was a storm, a message left unread, a rooftop encounter, a thread of hope. And sometimes, the most important thing wasn't the apology itself, but the courage to finally face the silence together. As dawn began to color the skyline, they didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Their hands remained entwined, hearts cautiously opening, minds bracing for the uncertainty ahead. Somewhere in that silence, they both understood one undeniable truth: love may falter, apologies may be delayed, and life may throw unexpected twists, but if the heart still beats for the other, even faintly, there's always a chance to start again.